Now this will tell us. And that's pretty conclusive. Still going. Close. I think he got it down.
How strong is he?
Good morning and welcome back to the Pick and Go Rugby podcast. We're here to break down all the fallout, all the events, all the happenings from the last week of rugby around the world. Of course, starting off in Wellington, where Ireland claimed a famous series victory over the All Blacks, knocking off the third test, and boy, did they deserve it. I'm joined in studio by Paul Moati and Richard Laddie. Boys, how are you feeling after the last week of rugby?
Probably feeling a little bit better than some people who'd be hanging around the New Zealand Rugby building, that's for sure. There'd be plenty of questions being asked. I probably expected that it was going to be tight. You know, I was on the plus, but probably didn't expect the first half to go down like that. Well, what a week of rugby, eh?
I'm feeling great. Feeling great. Took Ireland plus the points.
Doing some breakdancing, have you?
Not quite breakdancing, but I was very, very happy. Just with the financially, I was. Ireland
So
plus the
state
points.
of New Zealand Rugby.
Ireland 1-12. Although at halftime I was concerned that the All Blacks weren't going to keep it close enough for that Irish 1-12 bet to come in, but it did. So from a punting point of view, very happy. From a New Zealand Rugby supporter point of view, very sad.
I was going to say, that's about the most cheerful I've ever seen you to start one of these podcasts, Paul. But usually it takes you about 15 minutes to...
Well, crikey.
Yeah. And as someone...
Might as well make some money out of it.
That is true. That is the motto of the podcast, right? And as someone who did get a bit cute and take the try bet rather than just play it safe with the plus again last week, I certainly know the feeling about, All Blacks not quite keeping it close enough to get Mahadi severe anytime try score a bet up though. So that is something to celebrate about. He was good on Saturday night, so look at me being positive.
Positive?
Yeah. Well, and, I want to start this on a positive note because we're going to have plenty of chances to talk about the All Blacks, what went wrong, what happens now, how much what's going to happen in South Africa. But I do want to start with Ireland because, I think they played like the best team in the world, especially for the first 40 minutes on Saturday night. That was one of the best half of the rugby I've ever seen, let alone in person, just full stop. I think, they deserve a lot of credit for turning the series around after that first test. It would have been easy to let the heads drop even if a few things didn't go their way at Eden Park. So, I don't really have a question as such for the panel, but I'll start with you, Richard, if you want. Was there anything in particular that jumped out about that Irish performance? Anyone you want to shout out? What takeaways from the game as a whole?
After that first test, we were talking about the All Blacks and we said, you could have shouted out every All Black on the field. I think it was with that second and the third test in particular, in that first half, you could shout out any of those Irish players. Just around the park, we were out. All Blacks were outplayed, probably apart from about 2 or 3 positions everywhere. That back row, the second row, the whole full pack as a whole. Yeah, Ireland just playing a great brand of rugby. Really, I love to see Johnny Sexton going for the corner as well. They had about 2 or 3 very kickable penalties where often we'd say Northern Hemisphere rugby, they're going to take the 3, but there's a real mindset, and they obviously believe they're playing a good brand of footy, and it paid off. They ended up scoring 2 of their tries from those kicks to the corners. So, just shout out to them, to basically everyone on the Irish team. It was just brilliant.
And not just the players on the field. I thought Farrell sort of picked apart the All Blacks, put together a game plan that was very, very effective. And then you've got to have the players to execute that game plan, and they did that superbly. It was some wonderful rugby to watch, just from a purely rugby point of view. Beautiful, beautiful rugby. Their tries that they set up. I think what was the first one? They had an opportunity to kick a penalty, didn't they? And
rolling all in the corner, Josh Van der Fleer.
How good?
But they could have scored a try before that already if Bowden hadn't got back and intercepted that last ball. I think it was from Hugo Keenan. So it just goes to show they were right out of the blocks once again. That was obviously an area they targeted, and absolute flying.
Yeah, it was a try in the first 5 minutes in all 3 games, was it? Yeah, so they
No.
start strong.
And there was also, I believe, certainly in the test in France, different team, but the All Blacks considered trying the 3rd minute off a rolling ball there. So yeah, this is certainly becoming a pattern if we're starting to look back. But yeah, no, I think Owen Farrell and the coaching staff certainly deserve a shout out. If you look at the change in the 2 teams' performances and the way the Irish grew into the series from one test to the other, like what that coaching staff did to the All Blacks props in terms of targeting them and exposing defensively was just cruel and unusual punishment in some cases. Like Nepo Lalala didn't get a moment's rest when he was out on the park. He had midfielders or Josh Van der Fleer or someone running him at the whole game. So they knew exactly what they wanted to do. And when you got a guy like Johnny Sexton on the field, he's the perfect man to be running that charge in the park. And yeah, just on the same sort of note, if you look at just the score in the series with Johnny Sexton on the field, Ireland outscored the All Blacks 60-43 across the 3 tests when Sexton was out there, because it was only, I think the All Blacks scored 2 tries when he went off with the head knock in the first test, and then he was off by the time Will Jordan scored the consolation try in Dunedin. So maybe us as All Blacks fans and certainly the All Blacks backroom staff, maybe feeling a bit fortunate he did go off early in Auckland, because don't want to say, I mean, it was a big scoreline, but yeah, it just goes to show how important he is to that Irish team. And he's like a fine wine. He's just getting better with age. There was a few times on Saturday night, instead of watching the ball, I was just watching him when Ireland are with possession, moving around and directing his forwards everywhere. And he's just got that entire forward back on a string. He knows exactly where he wants everyone. And I don't really know what else there is to say. Just very, very good rugby player. But
yeah, very good. Yeah, like fine wine, almost 10 calories. Dare I say it?
It's all about wine today.
I'm not going to say what's in this mug. Anyway, we do, it wasn't all bad for the All Blacks. Obviously, no one is ever going to be happy with a double-digit home loss, but there was that purple patch, the sort of start of the second half, that came flying out of the blocks. Artie Severe, Will Jordan, doing the sort of things that are Kiri Ioane with a brilliant try as well. Got to give him credit for that. That was, sort of what we know he's capable of, busting off a couple of tackles. And, the momentum in that stadium when Will Jordan goes 80 metres and dots down in the corner and closes the gap, I think was 2 points at that stage.
2 or 3 points, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know how you guys were feeling, if you guys were following the odds or whatever, but you got to be thinking the All Blacks are favourites to turn this one around then, right? After they were like a snowball coming downhill at that stage.
Yeah, but they had the momentum. I was up and about in the lounge, jumping around. I was working on Saturday night. I was sending out a few live tweets, and it was a lot happening in that second half. And I thought I can't actually remember checking whether I checked the odds or not. I think but we obviously had the momentum, and I thought the comeback was on. We've seen it so many times with the All Blacks. They'll sort of get behind a little bit, but that final sort of 20 minutes they'll come back, but they weren't able to sort of put the icing on the cake there. But yeah, it was good to see that they came out firing that second half. There would have been more questions asked than there have been if they weren't able to sort of pick themselves up in that second half, but they weren't able to do it. There was that Ali Severe getting penalised on the 5 metre line for getting the ball to ruck offside position, which I'm still not sure was a penalty, but
yeah, you ask anyone sort of in the Northern Hemisphere, they think it was a yellow card and Artie should have been in the bin.
Yeah.
Ask anyone south of...
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's a tough one.
Definitely, probably thinking with my heart over my head a little bit there, but...
At the time, it looked good to me. I mean, I didn't have the best angle on it, but yeah. And Artie certainly, that wasn't one where I just think from his reaction, he thought he was all good. He wasn't trying to steal one there or mix some momentum. He genuinely thought the ball was out and was playable, so...
Oh, the ball clearly looked out, but I think maybe it was a position that he'd come from. But hey, I'm not good free. So
he's a victim of his own speed and agility. He moves too quickly for the ref to keep up, so it's unfortunate.
Yeah.
But even when the All Blacks came back, I just thought the way the Irish had controlled that first half, that they just went back to that, kept possession. Kicked down into the corners, preyed on the All Black mistakes, picked up a penalty or two here. They'd wrestle back control, and that sort of happened in the end. They, as you say, they may have had a few refereeing decisions go their way, but the Irish, they deserve to win the match.
Oh yeah, they were by far the better team on the park. You're like, the referees 6-1, half a dozen the other. Like, you can't be down 22-3 at halftime and blaming the referee. I don't think that was it was that first up. Like, I was sitting there at halftime when Henshaw scored that third try. I think, geez, this could be 50 points. Like, I thought, and like that is some sort of credit to the All Blacks that they didn't let that happen. But I thought, if Ireland score first out of halftime, which they're so good at, the heads could really go between the legs, and this could get ugly. Ireland could run up a score. So but still, just one of the great test performances, and awesome scenes at full time there. I was sort of sitting just behind the Irish bench, and so there was a great embrace between Peter O'Mahony and Tug Furlong for about a minute or so, and then Johnny Sexton comes and jumps on the two of them, and just the scene. And we spoke about how reserved they all were after the second test in Dunedin, but it was the complete opposite on Saturday night there. They certainly.
They let it out.
That was the warning.
The
warning at the end of the second test, where they weren't all jumping around going, test. It's the job's not done. So, they had a plan. They executed. They had to adjust slightly after the first test, and they executed so well. They're a very, very good side, and it'll be right up there. I see they've come into $6 to win the World Cup, after being out at around $8 before that third test.
And I mean, like, there's close to a 50% chance these two teams are going to end up facing off in a quarterfinal in France next year, just with the way the draw's fallen, with South Africa, Ireland, France, and New Zealand all at the same side of the draw. And this is going to be a huge mental achievement for Ireland. Like, obviously, we know their issues about winning knockout games and World Cups, but I don't think there's two sides are going to play between now and then. So they're going to, if they do end up facing the All Blacks in France, they're going to go into that test knowing we've just, comfortably beaten these guys in the last two times we played them. So that's certainly a huge help for the Irish, you'd think, as they build towards France next year.
And won 3 of the last 4 and 4 of the last 6, is it?
2 of the last 2.
It's more than 50% if you go back a long way now. So
well, 3 of the last 5 at the start of the series. So it must be 5 of the last 7, 5 of the last 8. So more than 50%. Oh, it's going to be good if that happens. Well,
there's plenty of water to go under the bridge before then. We will take a bit of a look at the World Cup odds before we finish up today, because there's another team in green that looks like they're a very tasty price around that $6 mark, but we'll get to them shortly.
We still don't know who the coach is for the upcoming series. We don't know what the squad was supposed to be named yesterday, wasn't it?
For the
For the Rugby Championship.
The official line is that they're waiting on some medical reports from a few blokes before they take them, see if they can go over to South Africa. But I mean, that is the danger with recording this podcast. I was hoping we'd have some news from a board meeting yesterday. We're recording Thursday morning New Zealand time, just if you are listening later on, and we do know more news about who's going to be at the helm when the All Blacks head to the Republic. But there's obviously going to be some fallout. What was that? Sorry?
So we can speculate.
No, I think, I mean, I don't know about you two guys, but given it's already been, over 72 hours since the game, I think if Ian Foster was going to be removed from his role, would have happened by now. Would you guys agree with that?
Yes.
Yeah, definitely.
It appears that they're probably just going to rearrange the deck chairs.
Yeah. It does seem a little bit. My thoughts on Manawatu legend Joe Schmidt have been thoroughly covered on this podcast. I do think
that gets at 15 minutes, 34 seconds.
Well, like all I'm saying is it'd be great to get him in the camp, more involved in the camp. We still obviously that weird circumstance with the COVID issues in the first week of camp, and how much did Joe Schmidt have to do with that game plan? How much was it just the senior players? What was going on there? But I just think, this is my personal opinion, not based on any inside knowledge or anything, there's just a lot of low-hanging fruit. A Joe Schmidt could come in and clean up stuff like the discipline. Obviously, we saw particularly in Dunedin, but even in Wellington, where there was a lot of penalties given away, where Ireland had the opportunity to kick the corner and take rolling mauls, stuff like the maul defense. Joe Schmidt's he's going to get rid of a lot of that low-hanging fruit and just bring the team up to a level where, like, let's be honest, they've still got some of the best players in the world, like Artie Severe, Will Jordan, Bowden Barrett, Sam White. Like, if you just have a competent game plan, they're going to be pretty dangerous, right? I feel like there'd be less rocking the boat getting him in there in a Rusty Erasmus style director of rugby role. But yeah, what do you guys think? What would you like to see happen?
Does he have a burner account on Twitter?
I think he's too busy writing 4-page reports for referees and to be tweeting like Rusty is. But maybe
Schmidt just got real.
See what he did there. Yeah, I think sort of director of rugby or some sort of role like that where he's sort of overlooking it all. And I don't know.
No.
What do you think?
If you're going to make a change, make a change. Otherwise,
as in get rid of Foster.
Well, yes.
What about give Foster the Warren Gatland treatment, bump him upstairs to the director role, make Schmidt the head coach, like the Chiefs did with Clayton McMillan.
That's a better fit.
Because another thing that I haven't really seen mentioned, but I presume people are obviously aware, like Joe Schmidt does have experience working with John Plumtree and Greg Feek, so he's at least familiar with half the All Blacks backroom staff or a few of the coaches there. So it's not like he'd be coming into a completely new environment in that stage as well. Like I think there's been some talk about maybe some assistants getting shuffled around, or for me that's the thing that seems like shuffling deck chairs if you still got the sort of same culture and same top staff there. It's not going to feel too different no matter who the defence, unless you're getting Wayne Smith and Razor or Leo McDonald or something in as your head assistants. Yeah, I don't really see what that's going to do personally.
Well, Razor's unlikely to take an assistant role.
You'd imagine,
yeah, unless he's promised the job at the end of next year, right? But even then, I can't see him signing up for anything. And like, if you're Razor on it, like honestly, at this stage, why would you take the job now? I'd say I'll win another title with the Crusaders, and then
stock higher as opposed to your stock. Just if it comes in and it doesn't go to plan, and we lose the Rugby Championship and lose the World Cup, and then New Zealand Rugby says, "See you later."
Although he might be gone before then. Maybe a club or an international side may say, "Come on down, Razor."
There must be some. They must have said something to him,
to Razor,
to keep him in New Zealand. Because what is his contract at the moment?
I think it's till the end of the World Cup, right? Is it? Or I'm not 100% sure, but I think we'll see. I mean, just my guess, and if you're listening, you probably know this by now. I imagine Joe Schmidt's going to be more involved. Ian Foster will retain the head coach title, but we don't know exactly how things will work behind the scenes, and there might be one extra assistant drafted in or something like that. But do we need to talk about anything from the All Blacks performance on Saturday night? Was there anything that jumped out to you that was particularly off, or what went wrong? The thing for me, just to sort of shove myself to the front of the queue here, is you saw the interviews after the game, and Dane and Artie were both saying, look, we wanted to start well. We conceded the first try the first 2 weeks, and we really talked about that. And even then, still, Ireland, scored a try and could have had another within the first 5 minutes. Like, that's got to be a pretty big red flag, right? If you're focusing on this one aspect of the game, and even then you still can't get out of the gates.
Yeah, they just looked a bit sleepy at the start, and they weren't able to sort of get through. And as I said before, all 3 games, Ireland scored in the first 5 minutes. It's just not what we're used to with the All Blacks. We're used to sort of the All Blacks being that team that starts strong and gets in there. So it was the start, and then there was just errors they were making. There's the handling errors and just giving away some silly penalties where not silly penalties to say, but giving away penalties at sort of important moments where Ireland were able to sort of go for the corner and get those rolling mauls going. And Geordie probably had a bit of an off night with the boot. Although that conversion, did you guys think they went over?
It was 50-50.
It looks pretty good.
Very hard for me to say.
I don't know if you've watched the replay of it. Yeah, it looks pretty good. But they were obviously under the post today.
Geordie does have previous with questionable kick calls at the Cake Tin, right? Like, was it in a Blues game a couple of years ago where there was one that was awarded and then taken off him or something? So yeah. I didn't love, like, sort of on that same note, there was obviously a concerted effort to go with more of an aerial attack. You saw, I think the first time the All Blacks got down in the Irish sort of red zone, Bowden hoisted a big up and under that landed right by the posts, and there was a couple other times where they clearly were focusing more on the kicking game. It's not really, I don't know if this means anything, but it's not All Black rugby, right? Like, you're sort of taking the ball out of the hands of what's still a pretty dangerous backline. Like, Will Jordan and Geordie are both good players in the air, but they're better players with ball in hand. I think that was certainly, I didn't love that. Maybe it was just, we've got to try something different, so we'll give it a go. But
it was early on when they sort of first put up those big kicks, Geordie and Bowden, and it was clear that was a tactic, but it didn't work.
Especially when you're playing against a side that loves possession and holds on to it very, very well.
And a team that has a very good kicking game,
they've got one of the best probably defensive back threes in the world aerially.
Yeah.
So
well, they had obviously practiced this and were ready for that sort of tactic from the All Blacks. So it didn't really work. As you say, we've got some very, very skillful players who look better with the ball in hand as opposed to chasing the ball in the air. So it was, I guess you can look at some of the selections as well. Samasoni not getting anywhere near the game day squad.
Let's talk about that, because there's a squad to be named for the South Africa tour sometime in the next 6 hours to 6 days. Not exactly sure, but I'm kind of thinking, like, you look at a few of those names right there. There is certainly a few areas in the forward pack in particular with the team starting to show their age. Is it time for maybe, if we're not going to change out the coaching staff, a bit of a youth movement, sort of like we saw after the loss in Perth in 2019, where we bring a few of these younger guys in? I'm thinking particularly in the front row. Like, I mean, every man and his dog saw just how badly that some of our props were exposed defensively. Like, would you guys like to see a much bigger focus on the younger, maybe more dynamic players for the South Africa series, or is that a big risk given what we know about the Springboks and how they want to play?
I don't think you can make wholesale changes, but certainly injecting a wee bit of youth here and there. I guess you're talking sort of about like an Ethan de Groot type.
Even Fletcher Newell or Tamari Williams, both, I think. Yeah,
he's a big unit, isn't he? Was he 6 foot odd and 140 odd kilos?
He's good around the park as well. He's not just a traditional like set piece. He's got some good footwork and strong ball runner. So
we played number 8 all through school, I think. So
he's got a bit of mobility.
Yeah, he doesn't mind a few tries as well from memory.
He looks ideal to come off the bench, with about 20 minutes to go. I don't want to pigeonhole him and say that's, but I think to introduce him to All Black rugby, that'd be ideal. Doing it against a huge South African pack in South Africa, I'm not so sure. I just...
But it's like, is it, what's the downside at this stage? If the props would probably, or the front row is probably like the weakest area of that All Blacks performance as a whole, I'd say. So it's almost like, what have you got to lose? Because if we send the same team over there and they just get like, Rusty Erasmus, we know he loves a video review. He's going to have seen what Irish did to the All Blacks at scrum and particularly rolling maul time. Yeah, I'd be getting the...
That's definitely one aspect of the game that the All Blacks need to work on, is rolling more defence. And the ability to nullify it, or at least stop it.
Helps. I think I heard that De Groot was in the camp last week.
He was down on the sideline warming up, and I was there, and I knew there'd been the injuries, and I was sort of like counting numbers. And was he actually on the bench and trying to figure out who was and wasn't in the squad? But he was, I think he was the only non-reserve that was sort of in that group warming up at the sideline.
There you go. And I think I read somewhere that he'd come into the squad and he'd lost 6 to 7 kgs. So he's come in, he's taken that advice on board. So yeah, I'd be very surprised to see him not there. But yeah,
not in the rugby championship.
I definitely
squad.
wouldn't mind to see seeing. You don't think he'll be there?
No, you expect him to be there.
Yeah. Cullen Grace is another one in a different area, I think. Obviously, there's obviously just and we're getting to the loose forwards. This is a slight tangent, but if you're one of the people who booed Sam Cane when his name was read out on Saturday night, give yourself an uppercut. What is that? Like, that was just disgraceful. But
he gives it 100% every single time he walks out onto the field.
He still tops the tackle count.
He is so far from being the problem. You think back to that 2019 game against England in the semi-final, like Scott Barrett being on the blind side got all the headlines, but I think that first half the issue was just as much Sam Cane wasn't on the park, because he just does all the little stuff you don't see. His work rate's still one of the best in world rugby. He might not be the sort of dominant tackler we've seen in past years, and he did give away a couple of silly penalties, but on the whole, I don't think there's a lot of yeah, he certainly wouldn't be one of the first names I'd be taking out of the team. That's for sure.
Should he be captain?
Like, just maybe, yeah, I like Sam Whitelock. Obviously, jumps out in that perspective, but yeah, because I mean, I think all these people calling for Sam Kane's head, right? They want to move Artie to 7, and then is it Cullen Grace? Is he the number 8? Is it Hoskins Satutu? Like, it's not like we've got another number 8 really banging on the door. Or
yeah, I just like to see Cullen Grace in the squad. You know, he had an exceptional campaign with Crusaders, and then sort of showed what he can do for that Māori team as well. So
he can play on the blind side though, right?
I'm happy to keep Artie at 8. Yeah. I think keep Kane out there at 7.
Because I also think Kane at 7 enables Artie at 8 to do what we saw Artie do on Saturday night, because Kane does all the sort of work around the field, and Artie can just focus on carrying a bunch of people down the park and doing whatever he does, and like trying for those breakdown turnovers. So I do think it frees Artie up a little bit more if you play him at 7. I mean, he's still going to be great. He's Artie, but it's I think he's just a number 8 now. Like even the Hurricanes, he very rarely plays open side.
Yeah, exactly. And then the 6 is still question mark. Yeah. Kira played pretty well on Saturday, but there's probably a few not young guys, but the likes of sort of Jacobson and Frizzell, who are sort of, I'd be interested to see whether one of them gets a call up back into the squad. But I'd be happy to give Akira another shot. But yeah, it'll be a different game against South Africa.
Yeah, I'd go with Grace at 6. I think he's got the big body. He's a line-out option. Like, yeah. Although and then the other one, if we're going to do the sort of lock / blindside, I think Tupu Vai needs more of a run. Obviously, he had COVID and maybe not at 100%, but he sort of, I think he's that happy medium between where he's obviously a lock and he provides the solidity and the grunt, but he's also a brilliant ball carrier. He's capable of sort of getting out and creating a bit of chaos. He's obviously not as dynamic, probably with ball in hand as Akira is, but against the Springbok pack, you're going to need to front up, and I think he's certainly capable of that. And he's another one, obviously, Sam Whitelock and Brady Retallick not getting any younger. We do need to start flooding these younger locks. So
and Retallick's out for
of course.
Is it?
Well, not just so even the Northern Tour.
Oh, he might be back by then. It was a few months at least.
Yeah, I think it was 3 months.
Yeah. So we'll definitely see some more of Tupu Vai.
Yeah.
Whether it's in the locks.
And that was a yellow card, not a red card.
Making the call. It was a yellow card, but whether it should have been or not.
But no, I think
I don't mind that. I don't mind it being a yellow, but I just think consistency.
But
the week before,
I think Tarville should have been a yellow as well.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, the issue was not with the referee at all. It's with the laws, and I mean, concussions are going to become such a huge part of rugby going forward that I think you can see why World Rugby is veering towards the safe side. But then,
absolutely,
a head clash is different from a head high.
But it's all about like encouraging people to get their body in the right position, right? Like I know
standing upright, with the tackle.
Yeah, sure. So make it a yellow.
It was a yellow.
No, not for Tarville.
No.
Well, we're going down a rabbit hole here.
Wrangling us back into what else have we got to? We sort of touched on the key names there. I think the front rows in particular are the ones we would like to see a change. The loose forward trio, no one's going to be completely happy no matter what trio is named to run out on the field in Mbomela. But
I don't think he'll be out of the squad, but I don't think Cody Taylor did himself any favours during the series. He was pretty uninspirational, so it'd be interesting to see if you see Takiaho gets a. Well,
I expect to see Dane Coles get the start in the first test against the Springboks and Samasoni to be on the bench, or the other way around.
Yeah, Dane. This was something I wanted to come back. Obviously, I said last week before the test, I think they needed a bit more edge in the forward pack, the All Blacks. I went back and watched the first half of the 2016 game in Dublin after we'd lost to Ireland for the first time in Chicago, and you could see that All Black pack came. They were just flying out of the box. Kieran Reid, Liam Squire, and there was someone else as well. There was 3 guys just in the first 3 or 4 minutes, just absolutely mauled guys and clean outs, and there was a real message sent. And you compare it to sort of the way the All Black pack almost looked to be going through the motions a little bit. I'm not going through them, but there wasn't that same bite, or like at some stage you just say, we're the effing All Blacks. Like we're not not going to let you run all over us on home soil like this sort of thing. And I think Dane, while he maybe, obviously his best days up behind him, you do need those tone setters in the forward pack, and he's certainly one of those. So, yeah,
It's a kid under your nose, but
like if you're going to have Peter O'Mahony like talking crap to Sam Cane, like he's not going to get away with that with Danes on the field, I'm sure. So that's just my 2 cents, and I'm obviously biased for several reasons on that particular topic, but
I agree.
Dane Coles is one of the great New Zealanders. Get him out there.
Well, I suspect he will be out there in the
yeah. Although, like,
whether in the 2 or 16 jersey.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know.
How far away is Kurt Eklund from a call-up? He was great all Super Rugby season.
Super Rugby, yeah.
He was good for the Maori All Blacks.
You can't. Yeah, he'd be next off the blocks, wouldn't they?
You'd have to think so. Yeah.
They wouldn't be taking 4 hookers. Nah, that's taking 3.
I mean, they could. South Africa took had 42 odd on their squad for Wales, the Wales series or whatever. Like,
and are they going over there for 2 games and then they come back to New Zealand?
Come home for 2 against Argentina, which I think is probably where we will see the real. I mean, depending what happens in the Republic, but the Argentina tests are obviously a bit more of maybe an opportunity to experiment or get
wait a minute.
Yeah. Well, no, I was just.
If they get dropped one against the Pumas.
Well, yeah. Even if they say, so what are our? We'll actually get to this, but yeah, like say you come back and you've gone 1-1 in South Africa. I think everyone in New Zealand would bite your hand off for that at the moment. But then you can't then be dropping a test at home to Argentina after that, because that's just going to do any sort of goodwill.
The first test is lost at home against Argentina, would it? Was that other?
Yeah. Well,
over there. No, that was here, wasn't it?
No, that was in Sydney.
Australia.
It was Australia.
Stadium,
yeah.
So yeah, that would certainly be that. But should we get on to the All Blacks' upcoming opponent, South Africa, because they ground out a win? Or maybe ground out is harsh. They were pretty comfortable winners in the 3rd test against Wales. They finally, I think, got close to their first choice 15 on the park, and we saw, what they're certainly capable of. Bongi and Bonani getting on the end of a rolling maul and crashing over for us, backed him to score a try.
Absolutely love to see it.
Yeah,
a very similar game plan to the Irish. South Africa, I guess Pollard is sort of their Sexton to a certain extent. They've got a big, huge forward pack. They use the rolling maul. As you say, crikey, if you like hookers in Super Rugby or in the NPC, you've got to love South African hookers. You just back them every game, wouldn't you?
I certainly will be the next 2 games.
After what we're saying.
Yeah.
They're just, they seemed in control for the whole game to be in that 3rd test against the Welsh. And we know the South Africans, they don't care about making wholesale changes, 11, 12 changes from one test to the next. They're obviously got a game plan. They're aiming towards defending their World Cup title, and they're happy to drop a test here or there. And that's the thing. They may against the All Blacks make them look a wee bit better than they are by changing their whole squad. If they pick up the first test, the Springboks,
14 changes.
That's not out of the realms of possibility. But getting back to their series against the Welsh. They just seemed in control. They didn't. I wasn't panicking watching that match and thinking, oh, maybe I should have backed Wales. No,
I was on the plus. So yeah, tough watch. Because I also thought, they just kept them at arm's length and never looked like sort of giving it up.
Yeah, and I do think obviously we're gonna see more of probably their first choice 15 for these 2 Rugby Championship tests. They will want to. The All Blacks is still the pinnacle for South Africa in terms of international rugby, so they'll be wanting to, they're not going to want to drop a test to that, especially even though they did win the series. I know that there's a few rugby supporters in the Republic who aren't thrilled at losing the first ever home test to Wales. So while there's not, I think the coaching staff have a lot of freedom to do whatever they want. Yeah, they certainly wouldn't want to be dropping another home test to a New Zealand side that is certainly reeling at the moment. Just the style of play concerns me. I think even if the All Blacks can sort of keep their nose in these games, when push comes to shove, the Springboks got 2 world-class front rows. They're going to be able to cycle a second one on. They're probably going to go with the tight five players on the bench, and then late in games, just you'll see kicks for corners, get the man up at 3, everyone in and rumble across. But
well, hopefully for the All Blacks, if Joe Schmidt does come in a overarching role, he'll be able to do a bit of work on those rolling balls in the next 2 weeks.
It's certainly going to be job number 1, you think, for whoever's taking training on Monday morning. We might as well touch on the last series, sort of the ones we're showing the spotlight on. Great finish in Argentina between Argentina and Scotland, but didn't see all of that game. What I did watch all of was the Australia-England test at the SCG on Saturday evening. England just getting the job done. Not too sure. Like both sides, obviously dealing with some significant injury issues throughout the series. It was sort of a bit of a casualty ward on both sidelines by the end of this one. What do we learn about Australian rugby? Do you think they're in a better place in terms of looking ahead for their future after that series, obviously losing 2-1, but showing plenty of fight with a pretty beat up side, or as the fact they couldn't get the job done on home soil against a subpar England a concern for Dave Rooney?
No, they're in a better place.
Yeah.
They're in a better place. They don't quite have the depth of other nations, but Rennie's starting to build that, and it was sort of forced upon him during that series, what with the injuries and suspensions. I mean, you have someone like a Quade Cooper ruled out minutes before kickoff in the first test, and then go down to 14 men and still come out with a win. I think that shows they've made a lot of progress in terms of their rugby, and they'll be looking a lot better come World Cup time. They will have a wee bit more depth. The players that they brought in, most of them have put their hand up and said, I'm ready for international rugby. So, I wouldn't be, I guess we'll get a better idea during the Rugby Championship, but I like the way that Australia are heading in terms of rugby at the moment.
Yeah, I think they're in the right place. They'll be hurting from not winning that series, playing against what wasn't a full strength England, but things definitely didn't go their way in the series. Plenty of injuries. It'd be awesome to see them with a full strength team. They've got some incredibly exciting players to watch. How good's Sammy Karevi, honestly? What we would do to have him playing for All Blacks.
Well, I saw an article, last week on one website saying, if the plane he was evacuated from Fiji from back in the day had gone to Auckland instead of Brisbane, he probably would be playing for the All Blacks. Right? It hurt my soul a little bit.
Man. And him, Kurabeti as well. Such a great player to watch. Just loved him from the Melbourne Storm days, and he's bringing that form over to rugby union. Tom Wright on the right wing as well. So they've got some, and then the forwards, the likes of Valentini. He's one of my favourite players to watch at the moment. So they've got plenty of exciting players to watch. So they can get to a point where they've got a full strength team or a near full strength team. They'll definitely, I think the All Blacks won't be taking that game too easily as well.
We had a Karevi, but we didn't want Nani Lamapi, so okay.
That is true.
Yeah, there's another shout out to Manawatu.
God bless the great man.
The look on Patrick's face.
It was pretty good. I miss seeing him sort of steamroll people, but we move on because I think, and there's less as anything else to touch on from that series. I just want to I think for me, Australia have probably unveiled or learned they've got a lot of really good depth in that tight five as well. See guys like particularly in the second row, Nick Frost stepped up. Caden Neville, obviously not a young guy, but young and sort of test playing days, even though he's in his 30s now. But unfortunate to see him go down with the injury, but he certainly stepped up to test footy. Darcy Swain, once he stops headbutting blokes, they've got a lot of depth in that second row. If they can get the balance of that loose forward trio figured out, that's a very good international forward pack. Dave Rennie certainly knows how to get a forward pack humming. So I think they've certainly got to be feeling better. But at some stage, I mean, I love Dave Rennie more than most. They're going to just have to start getting a few more results go their way. I think like these glorious losses are going to have to stop. But they're certainly just in terms of.
Yeah, I read the other day that his win percentage is only 35%. So it needs to work on that. And I think they're definitely going in the right direction. But it's just probably the depth
And I still just think at 10, they don't really like. Quade Cooper did a good job, obviously, in those Springboks tests last year and everything. They don't have that out and out gun though. They really need to. They've got a lot of young first fives floating around Super Rugby. There's obviously the 3 guys at the Waratahs. Rajan Pasatoa at the 4, so had some great moments in Super Rugby. They really need to, I think.
Is that the gun?
I mean, but can he stay on the field? That's like, can you rely on him to be healthy?
Well, I guess you roll the dice in terms of injuries and things like that. But
when he's on, he's on.
Yeah. He certainly, I think, has the highest ceiling of their first fives. But yeah, I think they need to identify which of these younger first fives they see as being their 10 of the future and invest in them, because that is what sort of could take them. I mean, you talked about the talent in the back line, your Karuvis, your Korobides. So Suliasi Vunivalu is only just debuted, but he's a great player. So
Matt Burton.
Yeah, I did see that. That was interesting. Who would you? You're the resident NRL expert, Paul. Which league players would you be targeting for 2027 if Dave Rennie gave you a call?
He'd be in the number 10 jersey, Matt Burton. And I see they've made him an offer. He won't go, but they've made him.
You don't reckon?
No, he won't.
But he was great mates with Trent Barrett. He's upset that they fired him.
Yeah, I think he's getting over that because the team's actually starting to play some footy. The Dogs, but anyway, yeah, I've dragged rugby league into the.
No, I do think it is an interesting.
But I think he'd be a great, I guess, he's someone that could ignite that Australian backline on a regular basis, and he's got a boot on him as well, so you wouldn't lose anything. And a lot of rugby league players that were, if they came across into the 10 jersey, would struggle slightly. Initially anyway, with the general kicking game, but he's got a huge boot on him, and with ball in hand, he'd be lightning for the Australians in that 10 jersey. So, yeah, he'd be the one that I'd be chasing.
You got any other names off the top of your head? I'm putting you on the spot here, Richard.
Yeah, I don't know. I think Burton's a pretty good shout, to be honest. I'm just trying to think of like some of the younger, not younger, but those people who'd be in the right sort of age range.
Well,
the likes of Cam Munster would do, but I mean, he's got too much going on for him with his he'll be playing international footy and state of origin and all that. But I think he'd probably more of a running 5'8", isn't he? So
he'd go all right second 5, wouldn't
he? Yeah, he'd be great second 5. Yeah. Maybe Burton at first 5 and Munster at second 5.
Oh, gee.
Imagine that.
But for me, the one, and it has been, I think, mooted, I've seen the name thrown in there, is Joseph Suaalii. Like the kid already looks like an absolute gun. He's taken the NRL like a duck to water. He played the 15-man code through school. He'd only be 24 at the 2027 World Cup as well, so he's running that sort of perfect age range. I'd love to see him play the 15-man code, but
yeah, because he had a bit of a slow start last year, but he's made up for it this year, that's for sure.
Yeah, he's still he's only 19, so he's got plenty of time to grow. But yeah, I mean, this is Angus Crichton's the other one you sort of see mentioned from time to time. He obviously played union all through school.
He's a 15-man man as well. He's got that sort of, I guess, that history, so to lean back on, as opposed to just an out-and-out leaguey who's been brought up through the grades, never played the 15-man game ever.
Yeah, for sure. But I think they've got lots of plenty, like the ball carrying loose forwards is not the Wallabies issue. Like Valentini, Samu, Leota, Harry Wilson, that's an area that they're absolutely stopped. So yeah, I'd probably be focusing on some X Factor backs if I was them, because I think that's where they can really go up another level.
Yeah, and too much to learn for the front row and that sort of thing, isn't there? It's just a bit too different, probably. If you haven't played,
that'd be very hard, very tough.
Yeah. All right. Well, that pretty much sums us up for the Wallabies, unless there's anything else you want to touch on there. Before we go, might as well have a little bit of betting chat, with a bit of wild speculation mixed in, because we know I love a bit of wild speculation. No odds up for the first test between the All Blacks and Springboks in Moomela at this stage. I imagine they're waiting to see the squads. But Paul, you got an experience in the betting side of things. If we forced you to pick a price right now, where would you be setting the line?
So without knowing the coach or the squad, I'd right now I'd have the South Africans at probably a 3-point favourite, maybe $1.50-ish. That's where I'd have it. So the All Blacks would be about 250.
Yeah, in about the same area, Richard.
Yeah, I was thinking 3.5. Yes, 3.5 point. South Africa should, I imagine they'll definitely be favourites, but they don't. They often they don't mind grinding out a win. They're not going to run away. They might not run away with it as such, but yeah, I think and the All Blacks will be, they'll be fired up and they'll be wanting to make a statement as well. So yeah, I reckon about 3.5 points favourite.
That's probably closer to about $1.55 or $1.60 to be fair. 3-point favourite. So yeah, but there or thereabouts. That's the ballpark for mine.
Yeah, I had 4.5 down as my number. I think the Springboks deserve to be favourites, and I'd probably be looking at the 13 plus, to be honest, just if things don't go the All Blacks. I mean, there's a lot of water to go under between now and then, but yeah, just if the All Blacks can't get a handle on that Springbok set piece, and we saw what some of the ball handling skills fall apart under pressure from the Irish defence, the South Africans are going to be just as brutal once they got everyone firing and that first choice team lined up. But despite all that, us all having South Africa favourites for the first test, the All Blacks remain $1.85 favourites to lift the Rugby Championship in October, I think it is.
Unbelievable.
Do not touch that price.
Yeah, I'm staying well clear of that one.
Yeah,
275 box.
Yes, please.
Yeah,
I'll have some of that.
Sign me up.
Especially with the 2 tests in South Africa, it just seems like
I couldn't believe. Yeah, I saw that the other day. I messaged you, and you said you were about to message me saying the same thing, Patrick. That what is happening here? So no, definitely 275 for the Springboks. The fact that New Zealand has to go play 2 games over there, big ask, and then they've got the 2 home games against Argentina, and then was it one home, one away against Australia?
Yeah, they're like those sort of the traditional rivals keep their 1-1s. So
yeah,
home and away.
I guess for the Springboks, the big challenge is they need to they were good against the All Blacks last year. They split at 1-1, but they need to just win the games they're supposed to. They can't be losing 2 games to the Wallabies. So,
yeah, you say that happened last year.
Yeah, and they do play the Wallabies twice in Australia. So I expect they'll both be competitive games. But if they can get there,
I think I wouldn't be surprised to see that Australia get a win there as well.
Yeah,
but yeah, 275, love it.
Look, I wouldn't be surprised to see the Australians get a win against us.
Oh no, not at all.
So yeah,
if get a few of those key players back, look out.
Well, yeah, they beat the All Blacks in 2019, obviously, at Optus Stadium, and they got the draw at Westpac in 2020. So, and then they beat us in Brisbane in 2020 as well. That was a weird game, but still, probably the All Blacks aren't tracking quite as well as they would then. But on a similar note, another market where I think Springboks is just a mad price. This is well in the future, but $6.50 for the Springboks to win the Rugby World Cup. 5th favourite is that. I don't know about you guys.
No, who's setting these odds?
They were about $8 6 months out from the last World Cup. Thank you very much. Just FYI, but yeah, I maybe the price isn't crazy. I think about the $6 is probably fair for a few. But why they're paying more than England and Ireland? Ireland obviously in great form, but literally never won a knockout game at a World Cup. England, they've got a lot of questions to answer. Might be full on mutiny there with Eddie Jones.
Very clear of that England price.
For me, I'd have South Africa second favourites behind France.
Yeah. New Zealand probably. I mean, New Zealand's got that track record, but
they're
not worried about South Africa. They're only been able to win every 12 years.
Yeah, no, it's something to think about. Yeah.
You're out of cycle.
Yeah, they're out of cycle. They've had their win.
Yeah.
I'd be if I was having a bet on that market, I'd definitely go South Africa 650.
Yeah, no, it does. It certainly jumped out to me when I was scrolling through that on Sunday morning. So yeah, with that, if you do fancy having a little flutter on the Rugby World Cup, 16 or 17 months out, whatever we are.
There is someone who's got $100 on South Africa to win the Rugby Championship and to South Africa win the
Rugby World Cup.
I think it's what $2.75 into $6.50, whatever that is, about $13, $14, or maybe more than that.
No, a bit more than that.
More than that, 17.
Woohoo!
So
I know
only $100 on, but yeah, we would return 1,700. So.
there was one punter who put 700 on Ireland at $8 about an hour after the third test at the Tinny House. So
The second test.
no, the third test.
Oh, so when the World Cup.
Yeah,
Oh.
yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
There you go.
Probably had a few Guinnesses.
Oh, I'll tell you what.
At the Tinny House.
Yeah, the stadium.
Oh, never heard it called that.
Oh,
Well, it was certainly was a great night out and about in Wellington on Saturday night. The scenes, obviously.
I did check in from Bundy Arquette.
Yeah, Bundy Arquette and Peter O'Mahony co-MVPs of the night, but
Shout out Justin Marshall as well.
Yeah, he was very active.
yeah.
Very
I
active.
think on that note, we should probably wind things up. We've rambled on long enough. I know you boys have both got important things to be getting back to, so I'll thank you both for your time and thank you for joining us for this debrief or support session or whatever you want to call it for All Blacks fans. But we're not quite sure.
Next?
Well, it'll depend. We might be
James.
back next week, depending on NPC odds and squads being named, and maybe do a bit of an NPC season preview. I've got a 45-minute spiel on the great big Brick Cameron to get out at some stage, so we'll see how we're going. But
Patrick's Loan.
I may be busy.
The one man podcast.
I'm probably going to be busy then.
Yeah.
no, I've already. It's already in your calendar already, Paul. I've locked you in for that.
Wow.
Yeah, if we aren't back next week, we'll certainly be back the week after to preview week 1 of the NPC and the Rugby Championship. So, and until
hopefully we'll have a squad to talk about then as well.
hopefully,
Coach,
yeah, maybe they'll have made a decision about a coach. and
director
something.
of football.
Wonder if anyone from New Zealand Rugby will have spoken to the media between now and then.
Wow.
Just
All right.
Logan. So,
I knew I was supposed to wrap this up a few minutes ago, and that's probably why. Anyway, cheers for joining us again, punters. Hope you've had a good week and aren't going too crazy without much rugby to sink your teeth into the next 10 days or so. But we'll be back in the near future to preview all the upcoming rugby action. And NPC season is always a great time to be a rugby fan, so definitely something to look forward to. Until then, have a good one and cheers.